just loving this moment. Can't always stay here forever.
Hey there, crafty friends. My name is Misty and welcome to Gleespen Designs. I am so thankful that you clicked on my video and I'm super excited about today's video because one, it is fall decor, and two, it is a collaboration with Kathy Jo DIY'S. She is such an amazing crafter and I will definitely be talking more about her later on in the video, but for now, let's get crafting. Okay friends, for the first DIY, I'm using this little wood lantern that I found at Dollar Tree. It does have its own little tea light down at the bottom, and you can just pull out the tab and then twist it and the light comes on. However, it is not very bright and I do want to change that up, so we will do that a little bit later on. For now, I go ahead and cut off the hanger because it is not going to be a hanging piece anymore. And then I take my white Rust-Oleum chalk paint, and anytime I usually use my white chalk paint, it is in the color Linen White. And I do a heavy dry brushing. I pretty much cover it, but I do leave a little bit still showing through, as you can see. I do also think this lantern would be really pretty stained, and because it is in that material, you definitely could stain it, and it would also look really pretty for fall as well. Using one of the styrofoam balls from Dollar Tree, I just take my box knife and I go ahead and cut it in half, but a little bit smaller on one side, so not completely in half. And then I use the smaller side just so that it is not super high and bulky. And I go ahead and hot glue it right to the top of the lantern. Now I'm just going to take my box knife and kind of cut where the little square is that was at the top of the lantern before we glued the half of the styrofoam ball onto it. And I'm just cutting down the sides of the styrofoam ball to kind of match up with that little square that was on the top of the lantern, just so that it's not super bulky when I add the floral moss or any greenery. I want to make sure you're not going to be able to see any of that styrofoam, so I go ahead and add some hot glue going around the square, and then I add some Dollar Tree Spanish moss, placing it onto the square, making sure that you're not going to be able to see any of that styrofoam peeking through. And then once I have those sides covered, I go ahead and add hot glue to the top and repeat the same step. And here's just a little tip. If you've ever worked with Spanish moss or any kind of moss or even any type of burlap and hot glue, you know it really kind of seeps through, and I cannot tell you how many times I've burnt myself. So what you need to do is grab a silicone makeup brush. I got mine from Dollar Tree, and you can just pat that right down, and you can also just press down your burlap and you will not get burnt. Now I'm going to be using these adorable little sunflower picks that I got from Dollar Tree, and I went ahead and just pulled a few of the heads off of the stem and I just glue it right to that floral moss. Then I'm going to go ahead and after I glue a couple of those down, I don't know if you guys have ever worked with these sunflower picks before, but the top part that the sunflower is actually attached to, like the little stem piece here, is very, very flimsy. So you can't really push that down into any floral foam. So I go ahead and just grab another pick that I had pulled the head off of, and I'm going to cut a piece of the stem from that pick off, and I cut it down to the size that I want it, and then I go ahead and place the head of, well, the flower, whatever you'd like to call it, back onto that little stem piece. So now I have a stem that is wired and I can actually push it into the floral foam and it won't flop over like they did previously. I added some more of the greenery and just slid that right onto the wired piece as well, and you can just push it again right down into the floral foam. I like to have a few different greeneries in my floral pieces, so I just use some of the leaves from my garland that is on my desk, and it is the lamb's ear garland, and I just kind of cut them down and glue them wherever I see fit. Once I have a few of the lamb's ear leaves in, I use one of these Dollar Tree eucalyptus picks and then the Krylon metallic copper spray paint, and I love how this pick turned out. I do show you the entire pick, the whole pick spray painted later on in the video, but for now I just grab a few of the head, the pieces off of the pick, and I go ahead and hot glue them down wherever I see fit as well. And I am loving this copper look. Like, it is so trending this season, and it is just really, really gorgeous. I will leave a link to the Krylon metallic copper spray paint down in the description box in case you guys would like to check it out. As I had previously mentioned, we're going to be changing out the light to this little lantern, so we're going to have to kind of build the base up a little bit because the light that we're going to be putting is not a tea light, it is actually a battery operated kind of candlestick, so it is much longer, and if you do not build up the base and you just put the candlestick up in the lantern, it hangs out and actually does not fit. So I'm going to be using these styrofoam, like they're a round styrofoam, they're actually really hard styrofoam, and I just place the lantern right on top. They come in a 2-pack and I leave them on top of each other, and I trace out the bottom of the lantern, and then I'm going to use my hot knife, which I do always have linked down below in the description box, and you guys know how much I love this tool. So I just go ahead and cut that right off, and I kind of cut out that square, and I do the same thing on the second piece of styrofoam so that I have 2 squares, and when I hot glue them together, they will be, it's a pretty good almost 2 inches. It's nice and thick, and that's perfect, and just a great size for what we need. I hot glued those 2 pieces together. Then I'm going to be taking the candlestick light that we're going to be using, and I'm going to place it right onto the square in the center, and then I use my pen to kind of trace it out because we need to make this a hole so that we can place our candlestick down inside of it so that it fits into our lantern. I do want to mention the foam and the candlesticks are from Dollar Tree. So again, I bust out the hot knife and I start cutting out that circle so that we can place our candlestick down inside. Once we have the hole in the base cut out, we're going to need the bottom to the lantern. So I use one of these glass candlestick holders that Dollar Tree has had forever now, and I just use the white Rust-Oleum chalk paint, again in the color linen white, and I go ahead and I just gave it 1 coat because I didn't want it to be completely perfect. Once the candlestick holder was dry, I grab the styrofoam base and I add some hot glue going just around that circle so I know that it's going to adhere to the candlestick holder, and I glue it right to the top of the candlestick holder. I wanted to make sure that the Dollar Tree candlestick that I was using fit inside the lantern and looked how I wanted it to look. So here's where I just go ahead and use my finger, and all you have to do is lightly push that little tea light candle out and it pops right out. Then I just take the candlestick that I'm going to use, place it down inside, and yeah, I see that it is definitely going to look where I want it because we have that nice thick foam like base to it, so it really lifts that wood part of the lantern up and allows the candle to be where it needs to be. However, before we assemble, we need to cover up that styrofoam down here at the bottom. So again, I go ahead and use the Dollar Tree Spanish moss, and I start hot gluing it all over the bottom and the sides. You don't want to place it on the very top. You kind of want to go just over the edge just a little bit, but you want to leave that top square styrofoam basically blank. You do not want to have Spanish moss up there because it will kind of make it hard for you to place your lantern on top. So again, I use that silicone makeup brush and pat that Spanish moss into the hot glue all around that styrofoam piece until I have it completely covered. Now you can go ahead and set your light down inside. You do not want to glue it because you want to be able to change the batteries, but look how perfect that came out. I love this DIY so much. But of course, I could not leave the bottom that blank, so I went ahead and glued one of the Dollar Tree sunflowers right up here to the corner. Then I used some of these copper eucalyptus picks that I had spray painted, and I glue a couple of those on as well. Then I use some of the lamb's ear leaves off of my garland, and I just hot glue a couple of those on as well. And I absolutely love how this DIY turned out. And being completely honest, it was actually very quick and easy to make, and look how stunning that is, you guys. I adore this so much, and you can just lift it up and change out the batteries to the light, and here's how this DIY turned out. As I previously mentioned, today's video is in collaboration with Kathy Jo DIY'S. Let me just say, Kathy Jo, first off, is absolutely amazing. She is hilarious, and I have seen some of the most gorgeous home decor made by her here on YouTube. And let me just say, if you like to laugh and just have a good time while you craft, definitely check out her videos. I will have a link to Kathy Jo's fall DIY video down in the description box, so go give her a thumbs up, subscribe to her channel, and please let her know that I sent you down in the comments. Trust me, you will not regret it. Now, back to the crafts. DIY number 2 is another quick and easy DIY. I'm using one of these wood hanging decor planks from Dollar Tree. It is just the blank wood plank, and I remove the hanger. Then I take some antique wax, and look how little of amount that I put on that baby wipe, and that is a baby wipe, by the way. And I am able to literally cover the entire front and the sides of this board with just that little bit using this baby wipe. I had a subscriber recommend this technique to me, and thank you so very much because it is amazing. I mean, I stained this board with just a little bit of that Hello Hobby antiquing wax that I just got from Walmart, very inexpensive, and I used a baby wipe and was just able to kind of stain that entire board. Using the white Rust-Oleum chalk paint and a chippy brush, I start dry brushing the sides of the board, and then I start placing a little bit of color throughout the entire board. And you will also see me turn my brush to the side, and I will dip it into the paint and then kind of do like a dragging it side to side type motion. It's so hard to explain some of these things, but you see me just turn my brush and I'll just dip it in the paint and just kind of do a streak, and I will keep doing that over and over. And then I also turn the brush back to the correct way, and I will blend that in, going back and forth throughout the entire board, and then going back in, turning the brush sideways, and I just keep kind of doing that until it builds up on itself, and you will have this gorgeous shiplap look. Once I have the board how I like it and it is all dry, I'm going to use this burlap from Dollar Tree. It is a Crafter's Square product, and I actually really like this burlap, and I think it is a great deal for $1.25. And I'm going to add some hot glue up here at the top, and I place the burlap on, making sure that the side edge of the burlap is covering up those holes from where the tag was. And I just flip it around, hot gluing it down on the back, wrap it around the front, add some hot glue onto the back, and then I just kind of hot glue the burlap down onto the back as well, so that it is completely wrapped around the front side. And again, I use that Dollar Tree silicone makeup brush to kind of push that hot glue into the burlap so I don't burn my fingers, and then I just cut off the excess. This year, Dollar Tree has came out with some amazing window clings. I absolutely love this Hello Autumn window cling. So I place some Mod Podge onto the back of it, and I just do a very light coat. And once I have the back completely covered, I place the window cling onto the center of my board. And once I have it where I like it, I just take my finger and kind of rub it down and get rid of any of those air bubbles or anything like that. And I actually had no issues at all. I usually don't when I use window clings like this. So if you've never used window clings on anything other than a window, definitely pick up some Dollar Tree window clings and give it a try. A few Dollar Trees in my area come out with these boxes of ribbon every once in a while that are completely random. I've never seen them at Dollar Tree before, and that is where I got this burlap and lace ribbon, and I just place it in the center of the previous burlap piece that we laid down, and I do the exact same thing, wrapping it around and hot gluing it onto the back and cutting off the excess. During the fall time, I absolutely love raffia bows, so I'm going to take some Dollar Tree raffia, and I just make a loop with my hand, and I make sure I have some hanging on either side for the tails, and I take some twine from Dollar Tree, and I just tie a knot, cinching it in the center, making sure it is nice and secure. Then I go ahead and kind of take those side pieces that I left hanging out, and I pull them down for the tails and go ahead and fluff out my loops just like you would any other bow, and then I cut off the excess so that the tails are the length that I want them to be. Now I just add a little bit of hot glue onto the back of the bow and I glue it up here at the top corner. Once I had the bow glued on, I cut off a few more pieces of the lamb's ear leaves that is on my garland, and I just go ahead and glue those to the back behind the bow. And I do a few of the larger leaves and a few of the smaller leaves, and I do also add in a few eucalyptus leaves that is on another garland of mine. I will have both of these garlands linked down below in the description box. I love these garlands. I will also have my new fall garland linked down below in the description box that you will probably see in my next video. However, back to the craft, I just went back and forth with the eucalyptus leaves and the lamb's ear leaves until I liked the look of it. Okay, so I've been dying to use this flower. In this eucalyptus scented potpourri bag, they have this really pretty flower here, and I just hot glue it right to the center, kind of a little bit below the bow. And you guys, I love that flower. I don't even know what the material is, but it is really, really gorgeous. However, I did also think that something was missing, so I added this twine ribbon that I got from Dollar Tree, and I just glue it right to the center underneath the bow. You could obviously put this on before you do the bow and the greenery, but I love this DIY, and here's how it turned out. Let me just start off by saying this is definitely one of my favorite DIYs. So I'm using this Live, Laugh, Love round sign from Dollar Tree. That galvanized love is actually screwed into the round sign with these two little screws. And I just use a glasses, like a reading glasses or sunglasses fixing kit from Dollar Tree. They have these tiny little screwdrivers that are perfect to get rid of those screws. And I just unscrewed the love, and then I take a piece of sandpaper that is actually from my zip sander, and I sand down those holes because they tend to be a little bit raised sometimes. And then I go ahead and use the white Rust-Oleum chalk paint in the color Linen White, and I paint the front and back of the round sign. I painted it white because I wanted to have a nice base coat so that none of that lettering shows through, because I'm going to be placing a craft paper on the front of this that I got off of line. So I'm going to add some Mod Podge completely covering that round circle. Look at this absolutely stunning Carta Bella Paper Company Fall Break craft paper. I love this craft paper so much. There's so many pretty prints in here. I will have it linked down below in the description box if you guys would like to check it out. As you can see, I've used this print once before. I love the color. So I place it onto the front where I added the Mod Podge, and then I go ahead and cut off the excess with my scissors. And then I do take my zip sander and go around the edge as well, just so that it is absolutely perfect and nice and round and smooth. I have been seeing more and more crafters using this zip sander, and I can definitely tell you I understand why. I will have this linked down below in the description box as well. Now that I have the round part nice and smooth, I'm so excited for this next part. I actually designed this image myself in Cricut Design Space, and there is a dot missing down below at the bottom right before pumpkin. I accidentally forgot that dot when I was weeding it, but it is there normally. I placed the image right in the center of that circle, used my Cricut ruler to kind of smooth it out, and then I removed the transfer tape. I do want to let you guys know that I have this available to you on Cricut Design Space as well, and I will also leave a link down below in the description box. You can follow me on Cricut Design Space if you just look up my profile, Gleespen Designs, and you can use all of my images. So at this point I was like, wait a minute, why don't I turn this sign into a pumpkin itself? So I used one of these stems from the bag of stems from Dollar Tree, and I glued it up here at the top. I did glue it center at first, but I do end up kind of moving it over kind of to the side so that it was not quite perfect. Now I'm going to take another baby wipe and a tiny bit, I mean I literally dabbed my finger inside the lid, and I kind of smear it around in the baby wipe itself, and I wrap it around my finger and just start taking my finger and rubbing it around that entire circle. And look how that just comes out amazing. I am so obsessed with it. I have learned so many new techniques this past week from you guys. I thank you guys so very much. It is so fun when you guys let me know new techniques down in the comment section. I try them out all of the time, and let me tell you, you guys have some great ideas. And I just love how that just gave it the perfect amount of de-stressing all around that circle. For the cute little bow, I'm using 5 Dollar Tree ribbons. I gather them all up so that they are all the same length, cut them down, and then I gather them up one more time so that I have 2 pieces of each of those ribbons, so therefore I have 10 total. Like I had previously mentioned, I don't know what it is with me and raffia around the fall time, but I just absolutely love it. So I take a little bit of the Dollar Tree raffia and I cut it down to the size of the ribbon as well. Now for this type of bow, there really isn't any special technique except for you want to make sure you're laying your ribbons down so that they form an X. So I just take my ribbons and I lay them down, and you do not have to have them where they match like I'm doing. You can mismatch them and place them down however you would like. And I do add a little bit of that raffia, as you can see, in every once in a while throughout the bow. You could use whatever you would like to gather it up in the center. I just use some Dollar Tree floral wire and I gather it up and twist it nice and tight so that I know it is nice and secure. Pretty much with all of my bows, I do like to dovetail the ends of the ribbon that I'm able to. So for all of the ribbons that I'm able to dovetail, I go ahead and dovetail them just by simply folding them in half and then cutting at an inward diagonal angle. I want to make sure you're not going to be able to see the floral wire that I placed in the center of the bow. So I just take a piece of the Dollar Tree ribbon that I also used in the bow, and I just fold it in half and hot glue it so that it is not so wide. And I'm going to wrap it around the center of our bow and just hot glue it into place so that it looks a little bit more finished and a really cute bow. Once I have the bow made, this is where I kind of decided that I wanted the stem to just be a little bit off to the side. So I pull it off and hot glue it back down onto the top of our now pumpkin. And I just glue it again, like I said, to the side. And then I place our bow by hot gluing it right underneath where the stem is on our pumpkin. Now that I have the bow glued on, I take a few more of those copper eucalyptus picks and I just hot glue them back behind the bow, and I place one on either side, and I really love the look of this. You could add any type of greenery, you could leave it without any greenery. You guys, I always say this is just for inspiration. You guys could make it exactly how this looks or make it however you would like to. I'm just going for more of a copper look in my home, so that's just how I kind of went with these. So Dollar Tree also has these mini hay bales this year. I think they are so cute, and I just add a little bit of hot glue onto the bottom of one and glue it down here at the bottom on the base off to the side. And I glue this on here before I put the Spanish moss on because I want to make sure that the hay bale is actually glued to the base and not the Spanish moss, because, well, it could fall off very easily if we just do that. So again, I also use that Krylon metallic copper spray paint and spray painted one of these little Dollar Tree pumpkins, and I place the stem back on and then use my X-Acto knife, or it's actually like a box knife, I do believe it's called, and I cut it in half so that I kind of have 2 little half pieces of pumpkin, and I take a stem off of one of the other ones and I place it onto this half so that, again, it looks more like a pumpkin. And then we have 2 pumpkins, and one actually, if you look at it, it kind of looks a little bit smaller than the other, so that was perfect as well. So now I'm going to take some of that Dollar Tree Spanish moss and I hot glue it. Well, I place it down where I would like it, making sure that I like the look of it. That is one thing that I do a lot during my crafting, is I put whatever I'm using, I put it onto the project without gluing it or anything like that, before I do any of that, and I make sure I like how it is going to look. And then once I like the look of it, I'm like, okay, now we can make it permanent and glue it down. So after I was okay with the Spanish moss, I went ahead and glued it down. And then I'm going to take those little pumpkins and I place one down here at the bottom. And then the other one I place up on top of the hay bale kind of, and gluing them both kind of to the front of the sign. Once you have the pumpkins glued on, this DIY is done, and you guys, look how stinking cute. Like I said, this is definitely one of my favorite DIYs, and for sure one of my favorite fall DIYs to date. And again, I will have a link to the pumpkin patch farm design on Cricut Design Space down in the description box. Here's another quick and easy DIY that turns out absolutely gorgeous. I'm using a Dollar Tree pizza pan that has been in my craft room forever. It was super dusty, so I went ahead and cleaned it off, and then I used my zip sander to sand all the way around the edges of the pizza pan, a little bit going in towards the center, like around these edges here, and then I also do the bottom of the pizza pan as well. Then once I have that all sanded, I use the white Rust-Oleum chalk paint and I paint all around the edges of the entire pizza pan and also on the bottom of the pizza pan as well. You don't necessarily have to worry about painting the center of the pizza pan because we're going to be covering that with this gorgeous sign from Dollar Tree. It is one of their fall round signs, and I removed the tag as well as the little twine bow that is on there. See, they agree with me about the raffia bows during the fall time. So I go ahead and add a bunch of hot glue on the back of the sign once I have everything removed off of it, and I'm going to hot glue it right down in the center of the pizza pan. Because this was originally a sign, it does have those holes from where the twine hanger was, so I just use some Dollar Tree spackling and I fill in those holes until it is nice and flat. I was so excited when I found this unfinished wood bead garland from Dollar Tree, and they actually have them in a different size in the beads as well, so definitely keep your eye out for these. They are a great find. I wanted to add some color and also kind of distress these a little bit, so I take a chippy brush and some antiquing wax from Walmart, the Hello Hobby antiquing wax, and it is again very inexpensive and very, very handy. You will use it all of the time. I just go ahead and dry brush that along all of the beads, and once I have the look of the antiquing wax how I like it, I go in with the white chalk paint, the Rust-Oleum white chalk paint, and I do the same thing, kind of dry brushing that onto the beads until I like the look of it, and I just love how these turned out. I think I actually might also make like a fall bead garland doing this same technique. It is just so pretty. Once I had the beads how I liked them and they were dry, I'm going to glue these right onto the pizza pan on the edge, not on that inside lip around the edge of the sign. I'm gluing it on the edge of the pizza pan, and I'm also leaving the beads right on the twine garland. How perfect and how fast is that? I mean, this took me a minute to glue these around this pizza pan, when it would probably have taken me a half hour to individually glue every single one of those beads on. So once I had it pretty much all the way glued around, I go ahead and cut off the knot at the end of the twine, well, at the end of the bead garland, and then I go ahead and glue the rest of the beads down until I know that they fit, cut that excess off, and glue that last bead down. And this is absolutely perfect, and it would be a really, really pretty like door hanger if you add a twine hanger onto the back of it. But we are going to turn ours into a gorgeous tray. So I'm using this candlestick holder that I got from a local Goodwill. It was like, I got 2 of them, I believe, for like 50 cents actually. So I add a bunch of hot glue to the top of it, and I'm going to glue it to the bottom center of the pizza pan. You could also use Dollar Tree candlestick holders for this as well, but once it is glued down, flip it over and you have this absolutely stunning large tray, and I think it is absolutely gorgeous. For this DIY, I'm going to be using 2 of these 14-inch wreath frames from Dollar Tree. Again, you will need 2 of them, but you will only need to be using 1 for now. Then I'm going to use some Spanish moss, and I just grabbed like a handful of raffia, and I'm going to kind of cut it up and mix it into the Spanish moss. You definitely don't have to do this. I just feel like it has a little bit more of a fall vibe, and I like the look of it with those 2 mixed together. As you might already know, you might be able to recognize this wreath. This is inspired from the Easter egg wreath that so many people did. I actually did one as well, but instead of using chicken wire, I used the Dollar Tree trash can. So you can do that method as well. I know it's an Easter video, but you could check out the video up here in the corner so that you can see how to use the trash can instead of, and I'm talking about the wired trash can from Dollar Tree. You can use that instead of the chicken wire to wrap the wreath form. Once I have the Spanish moss and the raffia all around the wreath how I like it, then I'm just going to bring in a few different types of pumpkins. You could use whatever pumpkins that you would like. These are a few of the Dollar Tree clip-on pumpkins. I think these work absolutely perfect because you can just clip them. You push the clip through the raffia and the Spanish moss, and you actually clip it to that middle ring on the wreath form, and none of them pumpkins are moving, and you do not need any glue. Once I had these larger clip-on pumpkins where I wanted them, Dollar Tree carries these tiny pumpkins on a skewer stick, and they have them in this normal orange color without the sparkles, and then they also have them in this really pretty off-white, and both of these kind of have like little speckles of brown paint on them, and I just think that is absolutely adorable. So I'm just going to kind of cut them off of, I'm just going to cut them off of that skewer stick. I place them again, kind of making sure I like how it's looking. And once I like the look of it, I go ahead and start hot gluing those little pumpkins where I want them to be. And once I am done with those little white pumpkins, I do the little orange pumpkins. I don't end up putting any of the larger orange pumpkins that are on a skewer stick. I did just use the smaller ones. Once I had all my pumpkins where I wanted them, I went ahead and used my scissors and just went around the outside of the wreath form as well as a little bit on the center, just cutting off some of the excess Spanish moss and raffia so it has just a little bit of a cleaner look. And now you can go ahead and bring in that second 14-inch wreath frame from Dollar Tree, and you're just going to simply place it right on top of the pumpkins. You will have a little bit of space between the wreath forms, so I just take some zip ties and I put one on one side and one on the other so that those wreath forms stay together. Now that our wreath forms are nice and secure and will not move around while we're placing our chicken wire on, I'm going to use this chicken wire that I got off of Amazon. I will have a link down below in the description box. I like to kind of stretch my chicken wire out a little bit just so it's a little bit longer and it will cover more of the surface. You're going to take the chicken wire and hold it at one end, and you're going to want that end to just go around to the back very slightly, pretty much to where it goes right here to that first ring on the wreath form. And as you can see, I'm just taking those little wires that are on the chicken wire and I'm wrapping it around that first ring on the wreath form. This will kind of hold it in its shape until we get our zip ties and zip tie it together. Once I have that side secure, I'm going to go ahead and flip the wreath form around, and I make sure that it is all going to be where I want it to be and that I have enough to go into the wreath form, like into the center and around to the other side so that I can wrap the wreath form. So I cut off the excess chicken wire that I do not no longer need for now. And then as you can see, I start pushing the chicken wire through that center and around to the other side, and then you just bend it down around the wreath form. And now you're going to take your zip ties and go from one side of the chicken wire where we first wrapped it and when we kind of wrapped it around that ring on the wreath form, place the zip tie through that side and then through the other, and it is going to keep that chicken wire nice and secure. Just keep doing that in a few little spots on the wreath form. I did about 3 every few inches. I would place a zip tie, and then I flip the wreath back over and grab my chicken wire, and I do these same steps once again, making sure that I have enough of the chicken wire to completely pretty much wrap around the wreath form, and pressing in through that center, I cut off the excess, and then I'm going to flip it over and make sure that the sides are to where I can add the zip tie and zip tie it shut. I just kept repeating those steps until I had the chicken wire completely covering around the wreath form. I did whip up this bow really quickly. I didn't do any measurements, so I figured I would not do a tutorial for it because it was just completely just thrown together, I guess you could say. But I do take one of these little clips off that Dollar Tree pumpkin, and I place it, hot gluing it onto the back of my bow so that I can change out my bow if I would like to, and it is just super easy to clip it right onto that wreath form. I think this pumpkin wreath is just so stinking cute. It has those fall and farmhouse vibes to it, and I think it is just as adorable as the Easter egg wreath that so many of the crafters were doing around Easter time. Let me know what you guys think of this DIY down in the comments. For this DIY, I'm using 5 of these 12-inch wood pieces from Dollar Tree. I only need 4 for now, so I do set 1 aside. And I'm going to use this super glue wood glue. It is absolutely amazing. Yes, it is a super glue wood glue. I always cut the hole too big, but this stuff is from Dollar Tree, and let me tell you, you really probably don't even need the hot glue. I'm just so used to doing it and also wanted to make sure, but that stuff works amazing. So I use the super glue wood glue and some hot glue, and I glue 2 of those pieces together so that I have 2 really long pieces of wood instead of 4 smaller pieces. So again, you're gluing 2 of the boards together, then the other 2, so that you have 2 really long boards that you can use for your new centerpiece. Once you have those 2 longer pieces done, you will also need a long sign from Dollar Tree. I used this Easter sign. I removed anything off of the front as well as the tag and hanger. And you guys, this fits on these wood pieces. Well, the wood pieces fit on it absolutely perfect. Like, they are the exact same length. As you can see, I placed the boards down on either side of the sign where I want to glue them. Then I just pick one of the boards up, add some of that super glue wood glue, as well as a little bit of hot glue, and then I glue that board down to the side of the sign. And I flip the sign around and do the same thing over on the other side as well, using that super glue wood glue and hot glue and gluing that wood piece down. Once we have these longer sides glued down, we need to do the other sides. So we're going to take that 5th piece of wood, and I use the cutest little saw in the world. I got it off of Amazon. I will have a link down in the description box, but I just took that 5th piece of wood and kind of held it up to the side, marked it with my pencil, and then I just used that little saw to cut the wood down to the size that I needed it. And let me just say, I know I did not use the saw the correct way. It was my very first time, and then my fiance was like, no, this is how you do it. So do not do it how I cut mine at all. You want to have that flap down. I did have safety goggles on, but I did not cut it the right way. But I did wanted to show you guys that it will cut these pieces of wood and Jenga blocks or whatever you need it to cut perfectly fine. Now that I have those pieces cut, I use the super glue, wood glue, and the hot glue again to glue those sides down. And then I'm going to take some spackling from Dollar Tree and just kind of fill in any cracks or edges or like where the wood met together so that it all kind of looks like one cohesive piece and you don't see any gaps or anything like that, because one, I'm not the best at measuring, so it wasn't completely perfect, but with the spackling, it was able to look so much better. Once the Dollar Tree spackling was dry, I did use my zip sander to kind of sand all of the wood down and where the spackling was so that everything was nice and smooth. These wood pieces can kind of tend to give little splinters, so you do want to sand it down. Okay, so if you've been watching my channel for any amount of time, you know that I really don't like stain. So the smell and it takes forever to dry and I don't care for it. So I do the faux stain technique, which is just mixing a little bit of whatever color paint that you would like. And you can do any color, purple, any green stain, whatever you would like. I used the Hello Hobby Cafe Noir. It is a beautiful like chocolatey brown color. And then I wanted it to be a little bit darker, so I did add a little bit of black. But this faux stain technique, you guys, if you've ever done it or you've watched my videos before, you know how amazing it works and it dries literally within seconds. So try it, give it a try. I promise you will definitely like it. And there is no icky smell or anything like that. So all I did was kind of get my stain to the color that I want it. Now keep in mind, once it dries, it will dry a little bit lighter. And I just use a paintbrush and I go ahead and paint it on as if it were paint. If you get too much on, you can wipe it off or just kind of take the paintbrush and blend it in like you would normal stain. But for the most part, you just need to paint it on and it will turn out absolutely beautiful and look just like stain. I actually think this color turned out so beautiful once it dried. I did have a hard time wanting to paint it, but I knew that's where I was kind of going with this project. But I absolutely love the color that it turned out. And I did go ahead and stain the entire thing, even down here where the sign is on the bottom. Once the faux stain was dry, you guys, again, I'm so obsessed with this. I think it is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I was going a certain direction with this, so I did start painting it, but let me tell you, I sat in my craft room just staring at it for probably about 20 minutes because I just love that color. Let me know what you guys think of that color of that faux stain down in the comments. It just looks so rustic and just beautiful to me. But again, I was going a certain direction, so I use my white chalk paint and I do a heavy dry brushing, almost kind of getting it to look like that shiplap look in a way, and I do this on the entire piece. Once you have it completely painted how you would like it, it would look like this if you do it the same way that I did, and again, I am loving this as well. Dollar Tree carries this 4-pack of little glass bowls. They're almost like a sauce glass bowl. And I just take 3 of them. You can use all 4. You can use as many as you would like. And I'm going to flip them upside down and place them inside the now centerpiece. You could also glue these down, but I do not want anything to be permanent because I want to be able to change the florals and everything out for each season. Dollar Tree also carries these really cute candles. I think they are really gorgeous. And I'm just going to take them and place 3 of those on top of each one of the little glass bowls that we have turned upside down. And again, you can glue the candles on top of the glass bowls as well, but I just didn't want anything to be glued or anything to be permanent. Of course, you could use whatever florals or greenery that you would like, but I have had this garland. It's a eucalyptus garland. I've had it for probably 2 years. I got it off of Amazon. It is still a great deal. So I will have it linked down below in the description box as well. And I'm just going to take it and I'm not cutting it up or anything like that. I'm actually just placing it down, pushing it kind of beside the candles and in between the wood and candles. And then I cut off the excess where I need it and I just wrap it around so that I have a nice, really pretty arrangement of eucalyptus leaves. Once I had the eucalyptus leaves how I liked them, again, you could use whatever florals that you would like. I wanted to keep this fairly simple, so I found these really pretty heather picks from Dollar Tree. I don't know why, but they just scream fall to me, and I think they are absolutely gorgeous as well. And all I do is just pull them right off, the heads right off the pick, and then once I have those pulled off, I'm going to start placing them in throughout the eucalyptus leaves on our centerpiece, wherever I think it just looks pretty. And again, I did not glue anything down or make anything permanent because I want to change the things out. I could totally see like Easter eggs in here or Christmas bulbs for Christmas time. There's so many different options that you can do with just the square box as a centerpiece alone. Then once I had the heather pieces where I wanted them, here's that eucalyptus pick from Dollar Tree that I used the Krylon metallic copper spray paint on. And look how gorgeous this pick turned out. This would look absolutely gorgeous in a vase with like a few of these together, spray painted this copper color. I am obsessed with this. So again, I just pull the heads off and I start placing them throughout my centerpiece in with the eucalyptus and heather leaves, so that it looks absolutely gorgeous. And again, you can add as little or as much as you would like. Then once I had the copper picks in where I wanted those, I start adding some Dollar Tree pumpkins. You could use, again, whatever pumpkins that you would like. You could fill this box up with pumpkins. I think that would be absolutely adorable as well. But I just use a few of the sweater clip pumpkins and a couple of these leather pumpkins. I think they look really, really gorgeous with that copper eucalyptus color. And again, you can just place whatever pumpkins that you would like. I did want to add a little bit of a bigger one, and Dollar Tree has these sweater pumpkins on a stick, as you can see, and they are absolutely gorgeous. So I just cut it right off of the stick and placed it into my centerpiece, kind of playing around with the pumpkins until I liked the look of it. And once I had that, this DIY is done. Well, hello, gorgeous. Do you guys see this? I love this so much. I know I've said I love all these DIYs because I truly, truly do. This is absolutely stunning. And again, you can take all of the stuff that is in the box that we made out and put whatever you would like. Let me know what you guys think of this DIY down in the comments, and I would also love to hear what DIY was your favorite in today's video. And a huge, huge thank you to Big Thunder Kennels for the 5 coffees. Buy me a coffee is just a fun, silly way that you can help support your favorite creator, and I do have a link down in the description box. And friends, always remember to be kind to one another. You never know what you say or what you do can affect someone's life tremendously. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you all and a few new friends on the next one. Bye!